So I was always a tomboy when I was a kid. I used to love horses. I used to go horse riding. And I had a younger brother. He was 6 at the time. I was very competitive with him. So the day my dad bought him a go-kart, I got crazy jealous. I really wanted to try it and basically show my dad I could do it as well. So turns out my dad gets one for me as well. And Sunday mornings we used to go go-karting, but in a really like free amateur way, let's say. And I really loved it. I went obsessing over it. We started doing the first races together. In the meantime, I gave up horse riding to concentrate on go-karting. But, you know, I really liked it. I was pushing my dad out of bed Sunday morning to get him to take me go-karting. And it was something we did together, me and my brother and my dad as a family. And it was really nice. I have beautiful memories of those times. Like nowadays, you start karting because you want it to be a stepping stone to racing in cars. When I was karting at the time, you could be karting just to kart. And I liked it, but I saw that it started to get serious because I started to do international races. And at the time, racing in Italy was huge. And I remember racing with Giovinazzi, which now is in Formula One, in Ugento and in Sarno and everything. But it was all still really pure. I mean, you'd go to the races with your camper. My dad used to cook me my favorite pasta. And it was just really pure. And still, even if you didn't have the best karting team, the best mechanic, you still could do a good job. And I had a really good mechanic that taught me basically how to drive everything, because my dad is into racing. He loved it, but he's not, you know, hasn't raced in Formula One. And now you see a lot of young kids, they're basically sons of people that have raced in Formula One. My dad is a great driver, but he never drove for life. So my mechanic told me and taught me everything. And at the end, it was really pure. And I just had so much fun. I remember racing go-karts and then playing football like with Giovinazzi, and then playing PlayStation in the camper, and then having like a meal all together. It was really nice times, nice memories. And it's what made me fall in love with the sport, because it's not only the driving itself, which is amazing, but it's also the way you live your life, the competition, the passion you put, and you put it in every moment during the race weekend. Like, I think it's the nice thing about this world is that it's so full with passion, because it's not all only, you know, the qualified lap. It's not only the race. It's so many people that build up to it. And the same was in karting. At the time, there weren't many girls in karting. Now, I think there are much more girls in the karting. At the time, I don't have much memories of other girls. It's something really superficial, because at the end of the day, I'm always a person. Even a male driver, at the end of the day, he's always just a person with their weakness and the strengths. So the people that know you really well know you for who you are. And then maybe you do a crazy sport. Okay, you race cars, but it was a bit different between, you know, from other people. I remember like the parents of other kids, or like my parents' friends, you know, they never knew what to get me for my birthday or stuff, because they knew that Barbies wouldn't be something that I liked. So they end up having Micro Machine all over the place. But it did feel different. I'm not going to lie, but it never felt a problem for me. Not a problem. And even as a kid, I was motivated, you know, to be strong in a male-dominant environment. When I was younger, it was simpler, because I was just having fun. So when it was karting, I was just having fun. But then you go to single-seater racing, and suddenly there are people investing on you, people that are counting on you, people that are pushing you to do a result. And it gets demanding, because at the end of the day, you're just like 18, 19, 21. And I see a lot of people that 18, 19, 21 years old, they're just immature still. And probably I was at the time, but I had to deal with so much pressure. And there was a particular moment, I had an investor, I was 20 probably. And I had an investor backing me for racing in the US. So I moved to the US and I did 2 races there. And I gave up my job, I gave up my studies, I gave up everything to reach and follow this the American dream, that's what they call it. And I remember that there was a race in a street circuit at St. Petersburg, and I struggled a lot in free practice and in qualifying. But then in the race, like I was from 17th, I was like 7th in the first lap because I did a huge good start and I was really good avoiding cars that crashed, and I did a few overtaking. So I was 7th and I really had the pace to finish top 5. And I had my teammate in front of me, which was basically faster all around the track, except one sector. And in that sector, I had him in front and I overpushed the car because I really wanted to overtake him. I really wanted it so badly. I needed it because I needed to prove the investor that I could race there. And I overpushed it. I crashed. And in that moment, when I crashed, all of a sudden I said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I haven't got the skill. I really don't have the skill. Now that it was an important thing, I just made this stupid mistake, which happens because at the end there were 7 people crashed that race. But in that moment, it was crucial for me, and I made a mistake, and I was so disappointed with myself. And I said, okay, that's it. But then the day after, you get to the track, and it resets. But there have been times where I said, okay, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I should do a normal life. Because the thing is, the more you climb, the more it's harder to stay there, you know. You go up level, you have to stay that level, or actually even improve. The more that you go high, the harder it gets. It never gets easier. So you think you've done it, arrived it when you're in Formula One. I bet when you're in Formula One, that's when it gets difficult because you need to prove yourself in there. So it's a lot about your mind, your heart, the passion, the right people confront you. But I had setbacks, and that obviously determines also the way I am character-wise and everything. But for sure there had been so much setbacks. Probably the setbacks are not a problem when you're a kid, when you're like 8, 10, 12 years old, just having fun karting. But maybe you need to seek a bit that freedom even when you're older. That's what I'm trying to do now. My dad found the way to get me in single-seaters, and I did a couple of years in Formula Abarth, which is today's Formula 4. And at the end of the second year, I had a call to go in GP3, which was a huge step because people that were going into GP3 came from European Formula 3, from World Series, so high level, more experience racing. And I'm just there thrown in GP3. I knew like 2 tracks, and it was a huge deal. We had, really difficult tires to manage. We had Pirelli tires and everything. So the car was way quicker than what I was used to. And, then you have all of a sudden people investing on you and the game changes, It's not you with your dad in the camper. It gets all serious all of a sudden. And at the time, I was the first female to race ever in GP3. So there was a lot of attention. Then Alice Powell joined me in GP3 and Carmen Jorda. And I could notice that there was a lot of, I didn't like it. What I didn't like was that there was a lot of attention who was the quickest between the 3. They wouldn't look at me overall. Okay, she's finished 12th in her second race in GP3 in Monaco. That's quite good considering, it's the first time in Monaco, it's first time in GP3 and everything. But then the main goal is, okay, she finished in front of Carmen Jorda. She finished in front of Alice Powell. She finished behind Alice Powell. It was always like that. And that was the main attention at the time. And but at the end, as a driver, you don't care. You're just there, you're working with your engineer, you're working with your mechanics, you do your own thing. Those thoughts come up to you between one race and the other that you're like maybe Googling on internet and you see. But I would be a hypocrite if I wanted to come in this world and, think of it in a different way. I just went with the flow because at the end I want to be a driver, so I don't care if it's difficult at times just because I'm a female. And it's never been, I never felt like a handicap, It gets difficult when you have to talk to sponsors because there's a lot of attention on you. Oh, wow, she's a female race car driver. That's so cool. And then you go and talk to them and say, but can you race in Formula One? Have there ever been females in Formula One? Like, could you actually do it? And that's the problem, that, you had all this attention and people just didn't think it would be possible. So I reached GP3 and I was like talking to Bernie Ecclestone. I was talking to a couple of Formula One teams as, to see if I could be like a development driver or something like that. And everybody was very interested. Everybody thought that I could do it. But then there was not enough people not enough maybe, belief that you could do it long time. So, the last step of investment was always missing. And that's what made me stop. And I had actually a contract for 2 years. But then again, the investor just didn't, it was expensive. So for one investor, it was still too expensive. So I didn't get the budget to race the year after, even though I had a 2-year contract. And I said, okay, so what we're going to try now? We're going to stay in single seaters and see if I can make it to F1 or, high level racing through Formula 3. Or I'll try and settle down. At the time, GT racing wasn't that high level like it is now, and maybe go in GT. And at the time, I decided to pursue my dream, and I went on Formula 3 again. I did one race. My first race in Formula 3, I finished 4th in the Winter Series at Jerez. So I was really pumped, and I went to do Formula 3. But then again, I did the Formula 3, I did the podium the first race. I was like 5th in championship, like the first mid-season. And then I finished the championship 10th, which was still a good, good result considering there were like 30 cars. But then, it's a pain having to talk about it. But this sport has always been only about money. And I didn't have the money for the testing, for the development. Literally, the team I was racing for would call me Thursday and said, okay, we've got the budget, you can come and race. And I used to get my car and drive or go and catch a flight and go racing. So mentally, every time I was racing, I felt like it was the last race. And I was so young and I just didn't really deal with the pressure that much. So I was making a lot of mistakes. I still managed 10th in the championship, but I could have done much better. But it's like you need to constantly prove yourself, constantly, any athlete. And when it has up to do with the money, it's just even too much pressure. But it was a good year. I have amazing memories because I loved that car. I loved driving that car. That car was just like suited my driving style perfectly. You could bring so much speed in the corners. It was amazing. And then I went for the American dream. So I tried the Pro Mazda and I did just 2 races. After those 2 races, we finished. The investor, as I had no money at all for racing. So I came back home and it was a really hard moment for me because basically I gave up everything for racing up to then. I remember the university, work, everything, and I had to, still like work and everything because I needed the money to live and everything. So it was like a really depressing couple of months that I really didn't know what to do because I'm like, if I can't be a driver, I don't know what else I can do. I had no hope of racing in single series at all. I thought it would have been possible. I didn't even think, to be honest, there was sense in me in doing it because I said, I had my shot, I had my go. Probably there's no more space for me in single seaters. I better off see if I can get something in GT. But then again, I got so fed up of the world, of the environment, that I was like not even hunting for sponsors anymore. I'm going to hunt for sponsors and race low budget and not be able to do everything the way I want to do it in a professional way. What's the point of me doing it? And I'd rather have the memories of me high level than, go settling down. But I still couldn't get away from racing. So in one way or another, I was always in a paddock, whether an instructor. I remember it was a crazy moment. The first time I stepped in a paddock and my pass had always had driver written on it. All of a sudden I had stuff and I was like, oh, this is a game changer. It was depressing, but then again, that's what I needed to do at the time. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. That's what they say. And now my pass is back to being driver. So it's quite good. It's been a roller coaster. I have changed the past years because, when I was racing, I was 2021. I was just thinking about racing. Here now, when that I'm 25, I think about racing, but I also have to think about paying my bills, if you know what I mean. And the good thing is that this championship, we win money. So in a way, it makes us chill out and say, okay, I can afford just thinking about racing. But it has changed. I was much more instinctive. So maybe I was a bit more, I felt faster, but maybe I wasn't faster. Now I'm just a bit more, you know, reflective. But what's changed basically is that after 5 years, I'm not going to lie, you lose confidence in yourself. I haven't been racing for 5 years. I don't know if I can do it again. And now the confidence is building up. At Hockenheim was so-so. Zoldner was already better. Now I'm in Misano and I feel way better. But, you know, it's not something that just snaps in. It can, I hope, but it can for some people. But I have changed. I'm more mature. I see things in a different way. But I'm enjoying it more. I'm enjoying it so much. Also because when I was racing in the past, I had the pressure that maybe the race I was doing was the last race. Now I know it's all covered for this season. So it feels good. It feels great. For sure, I've changed, not as a driver, just obviously as a person. I've grown up, and it has a good side and also a bad side. But, you know, it's just different. You just have to deal with it. The mind is everything. Like in Hockenheim, I was really fast, but just my concentration wasn't there. But I was really fast, but my concentration wasn't there, and I was losing it because I wasn't used to that type of concentration anymore, that type of pressure. And then I went to Zolder and I said, okay, now let's just keep it simple. And it was better, way better. But, you know, I know I can do so well. I know I can be in the top 5. I've been, you know, always around top 5. So, you know, it can happen. But, you know, as I said, it's a tough competition. It's really high level. But I feel like I'm in a good point now. It's all about the learning, really. You never stop learning. Racing is all about the learning, and you learn all the time. But you also have to understand when it's the time to stop and disconnect, you know, in a way. But, you know, your mind is different. The way it plays and everything, it's different. You know, when I was 18, 20, I just thought about racing and having fun. You know, now you're 25, you start thinking, okay, maybe in a few years I need to buy myself a house. I need to pay myself the car. You know, you have these problems. What kind of driver would I be if I refused to race in a Formula 3 series, in cold tracks? I wouldn't be a driver. So at the end, I'm racing here, and I'm saying it, up to now it's been tough. I'm not going to say, it's probably been sometimes tougher than it was when I was racing against males, because we're all really high level. We all have the same preparation. We share the data, we share the video. So you really have no mistakes. We have only one race per weekend. So I'm going to say that it's, you know, hard, if not even harder than it was when I was racing in Euro F3, you know, and you have to do it. But then you say, look what I'm doing. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed. I'm racing practically as a professional in Formula 3, so much attention, so much high level. I'm learning so much. So I feel back alive. I really feel back alive. Well, before, you know, I always felt like 80%. Now I feel, Vicky, this is me 100%. Good and bad, but it's me 100% with the racing.